We go to action movies for the spectacle, for the controlled chaos, the flawless choreography, and the illusion that everything is exactly where it should be. But what happens when control is lost? When chaos breaks in from the outside? In recent years, some of Hollywood's most high-stakes productions have faced a threat more disruptive than a box office flop: exposure. Not from critics, but from the shadows, uninvited eyes. Leaked scripts, stolen footage, internal documents posted for the world to see. Sometimes it's a drone hovering where it shouldn't. Sometimes a flash drive disappears. And sometimes it's a whisper in the right ear, a member of the crew, a studio subcontractor, or a casual observer in the wrong place at the most inconvenient moment. In every case, the result is the same: secrecy evaporates, marketing plans implode, and a carefully constructed narrative is rewritten by forces no one sees coming. This episode isn't about plot twists. It's about the moment before the story was ready, when pieces of these films escaped the vault. Intentionally or not, they became part of the legacy. Because in a business obsessed with timing and control, the worst thing you can do is lose both. Here are 15 Hollywood action films that were spied on, hacked, or leaked, revealing not only footage, but the fragile systems that surround it. Fact Hasson: The Expendables 3-2014, pirated before premiere. There are leaks, and then there's what happened to The Expendables 3. A full, high-definition version of the film appeared online nearly a month before its official release. No watermark, no distortion. Just the entire movie, complete, polished, and stolen. It spread fast. Torrent sites lit up. Fans around the world downloaded the film for free. Within days, the studio's worst nightmare became a measurable loss. Attendance dropped. Revenues fell far below projection. Lawsuits followed, but the damage was irreversible. What made it worse was the precision of the breach. This wasn't a clumsy recording from a theater. It was a master file suggesting insider access. Post-production, distribution, no one ever confirmed where it came from. It was a franchise built on firepower and loyalty, but when the leak hit, no amount of guns could fix what was lost. The studio fought back with legal fire, but in the end, it was a silent war already lost before the lights in the theater ever dimmed. And it wouldn't be the last time a film was compromised before its moment arrived. Fact Hash 2, Skyfall, 2012. The digital curtain pulled back. The Bond franchise is built on secrets, but in 2014, the real espionage happened off-screen. During the infamous Sony Pictures cyber attack, hackers leaked a trove of documents, among them internal files tied to Skyfall and its in-development successor, Spectre. What was exposed wasn't just content, it was the infrastructure of a global icon. Script pages, budget breakdowns, executive argument, editorial notes questioning character arc. Even private feedback about Daniel Craig's performance, never meant to leave the inbox, was suddenly available to anyone with a Wi-Fi signal. The exposure didn't just reveal plot points. It undermined the illusion that Bond was invulnerable. For a character whose life depends on controlling the flow of information, it was a brutal irony. The world's most famous spy was blindsided by something he couldn't punch, outrun, or charm. And as Skyfall explored themes of digital warfare, surveillance, and trust, it unintentionally mirrored a leak that cut far deeper than fiction. Fact Hash 3, Mission Impossible, Fallout 2018. Unwelcome eyes in the sky. In the New Zealand wilderness, cameras rolled on one of the most ambitious action sequences of Fallout, a daring helicopter pursuit with Tom Cruise at the controls. But the production team wasn't alone. Unregistered drones began appearing overhead. Not once, not twice, repeatedly. They hovered, filmed, vanished. Security scrambled. The footage, raw, unfiltered, began trickling online before the film's trailer was even conceived. From altitude and angle, it was clear this wasn't coincidence. Whoever was behind the lens knew exactly what they were capturing. It wasn't the content itself that caused panic, it was what it implied. The set was vulnerable. Someone had bypassed layers of security to get a better shot. In a franchise defined by infiltration, surveillance, and betrayal, the incident felt eerily aligned. Except this time, there was no mask to rip off, no villain to chase, just an empty sky and the knowledge that someone had seen what they shouldn't. Fact Hash 4, Deadpool 2016. The accidental catalyst. For years, Deadpool was dead in the water. Studios passed. Executives hesitated. The tone was too violent, the humor too sharp, and the idea of an rated superhero film felt unbankable. Then, in 2014, a 2-minute test clip accidentally surfaced online. Unfinished, animated, but undeniably Deadpool. It featured a chaotic freeway scene, complete with blades, bullets, and profanity-laced banter. The reaction was immediate. The internet exploded with support. Petitions began. Memes flooded social media. And just like that, a rejected project was suddenly in demand. Was the leak real? Ryan Reynolds played coy. Only a few people had access, he said, smiling. One of us did it. Maybe. Whoever pressed upload changed everything. The film was greenlit. It became a box office phenomenon. But the leak wasn't just viral, it was surgical, precise, too perfect to be random. Deadpool, a character who breaks the fourth wall, may have only existed because someone broke the studio firewall first. And the next leak? It didn't create momentum. It created fury. Fact #5. The Dark Knight Rises, 2012. The city that filmed itself. Christopher Nolan's productions are fortresses, locked scripts, no digital copies, code names for locations, controlled everything. But The Dark Knight Rises took to the streets of Pittsburgh, and the streets responded with cameras. Crowds lined the sidewalks, phones peeked from balconies. As Bane's convoy rolled through the city, entire scenes complete with explosions and vehicles were captured from every angle. One particular leak showed a pivotal interaction between Bruce Wayne and Selina Kyle. Though the audio was inaudible, the visuals gave away a plot development Nolan had fought to protect. The director was livid, not because people were interested, but because they were seeing it wrong. Through shaky resolution, out of context, too early. The film is about a city spiraling into chaos, and in one ironic twist, it was the city itself, its people, its eyes, its lens that unraveled part of the illusion before it was ever projected on screen. And in the next case, it wasn't civilians who leaked. It may have been someone paid to protect. Fact #6, Fast and Furious, 82017. The coldest leak came from within. To film a vehicular war on ice, the crew of Fast and Furious 8 traveled to Iceland, a location as isolated as it was cinematic. There, they set up an elaborate chase sequence involving tanks, explosions, and custom stunt cars. Security was tight. The area was remote. The production felt sealed. Then, without warning, detailed photos began appearing online. Vehicles not yet revealed. Set pieces still under construction. Angles that suggested proximity far beyond that of a bystander. The leak couldn't have come from above. No drone flew over undetected. It had to come from ground level. Whispers began. Was it a crew member? A local contractor? A coordinated attempt to monetize insider access? Universal didn't make headlines. They moved quietly. Access protocols changed. Schedules were reshuffled. But the unspoken reality lingered. Someone inside had opened a door they weren't supposed to. In a franchise that revolves around loyalty, the betrayal stung. The next breach, though, would reach even deeper. Not through a lens, but through a login. Fact #7. Terminator Genesis, 2015. Filmed from inside the machine. In 2014, Terminator Genesis was positioned as a bold reset. The return of Schwarzenegger. A new timeline. A blend of homage and reinvention. But somewhere between green screens and robotic doubles, someone recorded what they weren't supposed to. A short clip surfaced online shot from a position too close to be accidental. It showed Arnold interacting with a stand-in version of his younger self. The angle wasn't from behind a fence or across a parking lot. It was inside the production zone. The footage wasn't cinematic. It wasn't polished. But it was raw enough to fracture trust. Paramount's internal systems tightened immediately. ID badges rechecked. Crew rotated. One individual was quietly removed from set, not formally accused, but never seen again. The leak wasn't publicized, nor did it catch mainstream attention. But for those inside, it sent a message. The breach hadn't come from outside. It had worn a headset, carried a clipboard, signed the NDA. The next case, however, didn't hide behind proximity. It used brute force and code. Fact #8, Spectre, 2015. Surveillance in reverse. When hackers broke into Sony Pictures in 2014, they weren't just after financials, they took the skeletons too. Spectre, the next Bond installment, was caught in the storm. Drafts of the script were extracted, studio emails dissected. Executive commentary meant for private eyes only became open source gossip. One leaked memo suggested the third act fell flat. Another debated whether Bond's arc felt emotionally emotionally authentic. Even marketing strategies tied to luxury brand sponsors were exposed, showing how product dictated placement. The franchise, known for controlling image and mystery, had lost both. Bond himself had been compromised not on screen, but in spreadsheets. The illusion of control shattered by hackers who needed no gadgets or tuxedos to infiltrate. What Spectre tried to deliver with shadows and whispers had, ironically, already been screamed through servers. And in the next story, the invasion didn't come through cables or code, it came through Windows. Fact #9, John Wick. Chapter 3, 2019. The crowd that filmed the killer. The John Wick universe runs on silence, on unspoken rules, restrained violence, and the understanding that discretion is everything. But in 2018, as Chapter 3 filmed on Manhattan Bridge, that silence was broken not by dialogue, but by 1,000 cell phones. The production had claimed the bridge. Streets below were cordoned off. Keanu Reeves mounted a motorcycle for a choreographed chase. But the city couldn't be stopped. Pedestrians watched from rooftops. Hotel guests pressed record from their balconies. Multiple videos hit the internet within hours, showing stunt sequences, camera placements, and choreography, long before the studio was ready to reveal anything. The leak didn't spoil the film, but it rewired the rollout. Promotional materials dropped sooner. Theaters received new marketing angles to adjust for what the internet had already unwrapped. It was a reminder that no location, no matter how public or planned, is truly controllable. And in a franchise that thrives on mythology and control, John Wick 3 lost a small piece of both to the audience it hadn't invited yet. Fact #0. Black Widow, 2021. A breach wrapped in silence. Marvel is a studio built on containment, controlled narratives, measured leaks if any, but with Black Widow, the breach didn't come from tabloids or drones. It came through the supply chain. In early 2020, high-quality footage began to surface on Chinese video platforms, showing action choreography and stunt doubles rehearsing in costume. The lighting, the camera angles, the sound all suggested an internal source. No fly cams, no bystanders. This was raw production footage, tagged and time-coded. It wasn't sabotage, it was exposure through carelessness, or worse, through apathy. Somewhere along the digital handoff from studio to subcontractor, a crack had opened, and through it, Natasha Romanoff's long-delayed solo film lost one of its key surprises. Marvel didn't respond publicly, but internal systems shifted. Third-party vendors were quietly reviewed, access chains were shortened, and the message was clear: even empires can be shaken by a single unsecured file. The next story would shake more than schedules. It would blur the line between digital security and real-world threat. Fact #9, Mad Max, Fury Road, 2015. Eyes over the wasteland. When George Miller took Fury Road into the Namibian desert, he envisioned isolation, space, silence, a canvas too vast for outside interference. But isolation can attract attention. As practical effects detonated across the landscape, a drone entered the sky, unauthorized, uninvited, and unchallenged. It circled overhead, capturing footage of explosions and vehicle choreography. The production didn't notice until the clips began surfacing online. The footage wasn't flattering. It was flat, unprocessed, behind the curtain. It stripped the poetry from the frame and reduced it to mechanics. Warner Brothers reacted, but without a target, there was little to hit. The drone operator remained anonymous. The clip disappeared, but it had already done what leaks do best: unravel the illusion before it was ready to be seen. In a story about chaos and reclamation, Fury Road had been momentarily hijacked not by characters, but by a buzzing lens in the clouds. And the next breach would come without a lens at all, just code and a deadline. Fact #2. No Time to Die, 2021. Files held hostage. There's a type of silence that isn't cinematic. It's digital. Dead air between systems. No access, no movement, just a black screen and a ransom note. In 2019, as No Time to Die entered post-production, MGM's servers were breached. A ransomware attack locked editors out of their own files, sound mixes, visual effects, color grading sessions. The film's timeline froze. Hackers demanded payment. MGM declined. Fortunately, most of the material was backed up offline, but the disruption rippled across the schedule. Marketing milestones missed, delivery deadlines pushed. At least one key sequence was rumored to be lost in the encryption, though the studio never confirmed it. Unlike other leaks, this one didn't go public. No scenes leaked, no spoilers spread. But the silence it created was deafening. And for a franchise obsessed with timing, timed detonations, timed dialogue, timed exits, this was the worst kind of unpredictability. Bond has always survived impossible odds, but this time, the danger didn't wear a face. It was an algorithm, armed with patience. Fact Hasson 3. The Matrix Resurrections, 2021. Caught in reflection. In a city of glass and steel, it's hard to hide anything, especially when your film is called The Matrix. During production in San Francisco, a rooftop stunt featuring Keanu Reeves and Carrie-Anne Moss was staged with high security and controlled timing. But there's no hiding from reflections and no stopping the public eye when it looks down from above. From surrounding apartment buildings, balconies, and hotel windows, curious observers began filming. Some captured rehearsals, others caught the real jump. The footage cleared, persistent spread, before the studio could release a single official frame. No spoilers were shouted, no scenes stolen, just silent exposure from dozens of unintended angles. Every shot was a pixel removed from mystery. The Matrix is a franchise built on simulation, on seeing beyond illusion, but this time, the illusion was broken, not by choice, but by architecture. And the next project would lose its surprise, not through voyeurism, but through blueprint theft. Fact Hasson 4. Transformers. Age of Extinction, 2014. A leak in the design. Before the cameras rolled, Age of Extinction was already exposed. Early in development, a set of professionally rendered storyboards leaked online. Not sketches, not napkin doodles. These were fully illustrated sequences, complete with directional notes and character positions, including a major reveal, the Dinobots. The reaction was immediate. Fans dissected the designs, speculated on plot. The conversation was happening before production had even begun. Where the leak came from remains unclear. A disgruntled artist? A digital mishap? A marketing misfire? The studio never said. What's certain is this: the visual core of the film, the raw DNA of its biggest set piece, was public before it was ready. And in a franchise that thrives on transformation, this early reveal stripped the moment of its impact. By the time the Dinobots appeared on screen, they were already familiar. It was a reminder that in the digital age, even concept art is a liability. The final story, though, didn't leak online. It hovered in the air, unnoticed, until it wasn't. Fact Hasson 5. Top Gun, Maverick, 2022. Surveillance at altitude. Top Gun. Maverick pushed realism to new heights literally. Real jets, real pilots, real G-force. And while the film's aerial sequences were filmed with military precision and under strict supervision, one shoot was interrupted by something unexpected: a drone. During a flight exercise staged for the film, an unauthorized UAV entered restricted airspace near a jet rigged with IMAX cameras. It stayed just long enough to be noticed, then vanished. No images were released, no footage went viral, but those on set knew what had happened. Someone, somewhere, was watching what was never meant to be seen. The incident triggered new protocols. The flight zone was expanded, crew movement restricted. No-fly perimeters were digitally enforced. For a film about aerial dominance and unseen threats, the metaphor landed sharply. Even at Mach 1, even at 20,000 feet, someone might still have the better view. Bonus fact: Gunned, 1989. The movie that leaked its own myth. Some films are remembered for what they were, others for what people thought they were. In 1989, Gunhead was pitched as Japan's gritty answer to the mech genre, part machine war, part cyberpunk dystopia, and co-produced with American partners hungry for crossover success. But long before it reached theaters, Gunhead appeared somewhere else. Rough VHS copies began circulating through bootleg networks, grainy, time-coded, filled with half-finished effects and abrupt audio cuts. Scenes lingered too long, some faded into static. It didn't look like a final film, and it wasn't. What leaked was a work in progress, raw dailies, or perhaps an unapproved test reel. Yet fans latched onto it, believing they'd uncovered something forbidden, something censored, something lost. The actual film eventually premiered. Cleaner, tighter, but to many, it felt like a downgrade. The leaked version had already rewritten the story, not the plot, but the narrative of what the film meant. To this day, Gunhead carries a cult reputation, not because of what it was, but because of what it almost was. A film built around machinery and war, undone by one quiet act of duplication. It wasn't the final edit that made Gunhead legend, it was the leak. Every one of these films was built to impress, To control the moment of surprise, to own the reveal, but they didn't. Some were breached by strangers, some by insiders, some simply by chance, and in each case, the moment was stolen and made public. So now we ask, was it sabotage or inevitability? A warning sign or a crack in an outdated system? And deeper still, should we feel guilty for watching what wasn't meant for us, or just grateful that it escaped? The vaults were built to keep the stories safe, but stories, it seems, have a way of leaking out.